time I'll call to order the June 5th, 2025 meeting of the Clearwater City Council. This time I will call forward Father Bob Swift from St. Francis of Assisi to give our invocation for tonight, and then after Father Bob delivers the invocation, please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Father Bob.
And let us pray. Heavenly Father and ever-loving God, thank you for the gift of these devoted leaders of our city. Inspire them to act with good character and conviction, to listen with understanding and goodwill, and to speak with charity and restraint. Give these, our community leaders, a continuing spirit of service. Remind them always that they are stewards of your authority. And Father, we ask that you renew them with the strength of your presence and the joy of helping to build a community truly worthy of the human person. And dear Lord, help us all to better understanding that the common good isn't measured merely by material social being, but more deeply by the measurement of our charity to those in need and kindness to all of our neighbors. Amen.
Thank you, Father. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we begin, I'll introduce our dais for tonight. To my far left is our City Clerk, Rosemarie Call.
Good evening.
To her right is our City Attorney, David Margolis.
Good evening.
To his right is Councilmember Ryan Cotton.
Good evening.
To his right and my left is Councilmember Mike Menino.
Good evening.
To my right is Councilmember David Albritton.
Good evening.
To his right is Vice Mayor Lena Teixeira.
Good evening.
To her right is our City Manager, Jennifer Poirier.
Good evening.
And to her right is Assistant City Manager Dan Slaughter. And to his right is our Assistant City Manager Al Battle.
Good evening.
That will move to item 4.1 on the agenda. At this time, I'll call forward Dylan Mayo, Terry Malcolm Smith, and Dania Perez from the Economic Development and Housing Department to receive a proclamation for Home Ownership Month. Whereas the importance of home ownership in American society impacts neighborhood stability and the nation's economic health, and whereas the City of Clearwater is committed to preserve and increase the level of home ownership in the city and participates in HUD's home investment partnerships and community development block grant programs and the State Housing Initiatives Partnership Program to support initiatives such as home ownership counseling, purchase assistance, new construction rehabilitation of its existing housing stock, and affordable, lower-cost housing. And whereas the City of Clearwater also commends the efforts of our community's private sector, its developers, lenders, realtors, and nonprofit organizations, all of whom are committed to keeping families in their homes and to promote the American dream to new homeowners in the City of Clearwater. And whereas the Economic Development and Housing Department of the City of Clearwater and its community partners are participating in the free 34th Annual Home Ownership for People Everywhere Expo on Saturday, June 28th, 2025 at the Raymond James Financial Center to encourage citizens to take the free home buyer workshop, meet and speak to housing counselors, lenders, real estate agents, and community resource representatives regarding home ownership. Now, therefore, I, Bruce Rector, Mayor of the City of Clearwater, Florida, on behalf of the Clearwater City Council, do hereby proclaim June 2025 to be National Home Ownership Month in Clearwater. Thank you for coming tonight to accept this proclamation. Would you like to say a few words?
Sure would. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. Thank you for acknowledging Home Ownership Month and recognizing the importance of this milestone in the lives of so many in our community. With me tonight, Terry Malcolm Smith and Dania Perez, who along with the rest of our team work tirelessly every day to make the dream of homeownership a reality in our community. We are proud to play a role in helping individuals and families achieve this fundamental piece of the American dream. Your support and proclamation reinforce the value of our work, not just for our department, but for the people that we assist. On behalf of our team and the many homeowners whose lives have been transformed, we thank you for your continued commitment to expanding access to safe, stable, and affordable housing.
Thank you for the work you do, and thank you for coming tonight.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Watch your step here. Watch your step. Watch your step.
Okay, with that, we'll move to item 4.2 on the agenda, legislative update. Harry, did Harry step? Oh, there's Harry, I see him. Call to the podium, Harry Glenn from Van Skyok Associates.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council members, it's great to be with you. I haven't been with you for a while, so it's great to be back here again. I'm sorry, Councilman Albritton gets to see me twice in 1 week, so thank you for seeing me. The clerk asked me to do the unenviable task of giving you a 5-minute update of what's going on in Washington, so I will just try and keep it to the things I think that are of interest to the city. As you know, much is going on at one time right now, but I think two things happening simultaneously involving federal spending and the budget are probably the most impactful to you at the city. And some of the things we're going to talk about are going to involve home ownership and home ownership opportunities. So I know you just presented an award there. Right now, Congress has just kicked off this week the federal appropriations process for fiscal year 2026. As you know, last year for the current year, fiscal 25, Congress was unable to resolve its differences on spending and appropriations bills for the year, so we're operating, unlike you, under a continuing resolution, which is kind of putting the government on automatic pilot for a year at last year's spending levels. So that has happened. That did have an implication to the city. We'll talk about that in a minute. But the president on Friday, late Friday afternoon, released his fiscal 26 budget request. It was several months late because it's a new administration. And that officially kicks off the fiscal year 2026 funding and appropriations process that Congress embarks on. And overall, I'm sure you've read, his budget request recommends a 22% reduction in non-defense discretionary spending. These are a variety of programs, many of which impact communities. In some cases, the president increased funding for domestic programs. In some cases, he took large cuts. There are two I'm going to really talk about in particular that would impact the city. The first is the Community Development Block Grant Program. As you know, the city receives a formula funding every year for the block grant program. I looked up, I think your allocation for the current fiscal year is about $925,000. So the president's budget recommends $0 for that program in 2026, the next year. Likewise, a second program that you all receive federal funding on a formula grant for is called the Home Investment Program. This is a funding that you receive that you can encourage and help with affordable housing, rental housing, and first-time home buyer opportunities. The city in fiscal 25, I looked up, was eligible for about $383,000 in funding. So we're just at the very beginning of the process. This is a recommendation by the administration. It's been a recommendation that's come to Congress many years before. Congress, just keep in mind, Congress ultimately, according to the Constitution, has the final discretion on how spending will be allocated across the next fiscal year. So we have a long way to go. We're going to continue to monitor this for you, but we know these are two important programs to the city that provide you with a lot of flexibility in helping this community with community needs and housing needs. So we'll stay in touch with you and work with the clerk on that and let you know what happens. Second thing we'll talk about, I mentioned at the very beginning, because we're under a continuing resolution, Congress was unable to fund any congressionally directed spending, or what we used to call earmark projects. Congresswoman Luna last year sponsored a project that you requested for a stormwater project in North Clearwater Beach. She'd recommended in her bill last year in the spending bill $7.5 million for this project. Because Congress didn't finish their work on the appropriations bills, none of the earmarked projects were able to be executed, so they all had to be rolled into this year. She sponsored the request again this year and has included on her list of requests to the committee $5 million to continue to support. I know it's a much larger project than that, but to support the North Clearwater Beach Stormwater Improvement Project. So the subcommittee that works on that particular issue of stormwater and funds the Environmental Protection Agency will mark up their appropriations bill on June 23rd. So we will keep track of what happens and let you all know the outcome of that. And it's still a long way to go. It has to go through the House and has to go through the Senate and be signed into law by the President. But this is the first step, and Congresswoman Luna has been great to work with us on that project. Now, it's not all doom and gloom. While there are some reductions and eliminations of programs were recommended by the President, he does continue to support funding for a variety of other programs, including FEMA. And I'll talk specifically about FEMA in a second. He also recommends robust funding for transportation programs. We talked to Councilman Albritton about that the other day, that public transit, highway programs, safe streets, the BUILD grant, which is where you're going to build your new Clearwater Transit Center. All those programs are fully recommended for full funding by the President, so that's a good sign. He also continues to recommend funding for law enforcement, firefighting, and first responders programs, so there are federal programs to support those. A second area that Congress is, I talked about two budget areas. The second thing that Congress is working on right now is something called the Budget Reconciliation Bill, or you've probably heard it named the One Big Beautiful Bill. This is a process that's completely separate from the regular appropriations process. It's an expedited process where Congress can, with a simple majority vote in the Senate, that's unusual. Usually it takes 60 votes for the Senate to do anything. So this expedited process enables Congress to reduce spending over the next 10 years, increase spending in certain areas, in this case national security and homeland security, and to adjust the tax code. Primarily the 2017 Tax Reform Act that President Trump led when he was in his first term. A lot of those provisions expire at the end of next year, and so Congress needs to extend those provisions. All that's being done and wrapped up in this budget reconciliation bill. There was one provision that was of concern that might appear in that bill. That was a concern to communities across the country, elected officials like you, which was Congress had thought about eliminating the tax-free status of municipal bonds as a way to generate revenue to pay for some of the other tax changes. The good news is the House bill that passed in late May did not include any changes to the municipal bond program, so that's good for future financing of bonds. And we have not heard any talk. The Senate's just beginning to consider their bill, and there's no talk in there right now about doing that. So that's a good news thing. The other two items that I want to call attention to in this big budget reconciliation bill that will be of interest to the city, and the first does involve housing. There's a program called the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program, which is a program that started in 1987. And the federal government, it's a complicated program, but the federal government's allowed to allocate tax credits to states to then allow the states to support affordable housing for rental purposes and also first-time home buyers. And so each state gets an allocation based on a variety of things, including population, income, and other things. And then they're allowed to take those funds and award tax credits to developers who develop these these affordable housing and first-time home buyer programs. So Congress reauthorized the program. It was set to expire at the end of last year, and they actually raised the cap on the credits that will be available to states so that it will enable states to make more opportunities available for developers to help out. I know it's a primary issue of interest to the city. We'll continue to track that for you, but I think it's good news that more housing opportunities will be available. The second thing I want to bring to your attention is that the bill extends a program that was created in 2017 called the Federal Opportunity Zone Program. This is a program that was in the 2017 Tax Reform Act, and it created a way for investors who are generating capital gains to roll their capital gains back into projects within opportunity zones in communities. These are opportunity zones with a variety of criteria, but it's income, low income, other factors, poverty rates and other things help determine opportunity zones. So back in 2017 when Congress created the program, the governors were given the authority to nominate opportunity zones to the Department of Treasury for consideration to be embedded into the program. So Governor Scott at the time nominated the consensus tracks for Florida that would be considered in the program, and you have one that we're actually standing in right now. And so this program, there are 8,700 opportunity zones created back in 2017. Most of the benefits from that program have kind of wound down, and so this, what they were doing in the reconciliation bill would be to allow governors to nominate new census tracts for opportunity zone consideration. So it's something that the city, the council may want to consider is thinking about other places to, other tracts to nominate. And B, it restarts the clock on investment opportunities. So in the case of an opportunity zone, if you invest in an opportunity fund that invests in an opportunity zone, you're allowed to defer your capital gains depending on how long that investment rides for, all the way up to, if it's a 10-year investment, you can actually forego paying any capital gains on the project and on any previous capital gains you earn. So this is an important project for development opportunities. I think the administration is really going to focus on that over the next 4 years. But it's also important for a second reason, in that this administration, when you're applying for federal grants, one of the criteria they're going to look at in evaluating grant applications is the project in an opportunity zone, or does it neighbor an opportunity zone, or in the case of a transit project, does the project go through an opportunity zone? So it's something, as you're looking at these opportunity zones and projects you may consider for applying for federal grants, it's important that this will be one of the criteria they're looking at. In fact, the Secretary of the Transportation, Sean Duffy, his second day on the job, he put out a memo outlining the Department of Transportation's priority areas for the next 4 years. And the second thing he had on his list is the project in an opportunity zone. So I think communities would be smart to look at those and see if there's some way they can work with the governor of your state, Governor DeSantis, and try and find other opportunities to include. Finally, I just want to mention we're in just the beginning of hurricane season, and I know living in this community, I know what we went through last year. It's been a lot of conversation in Washington about the future of FEMA and what's going to happen with FEMA and disaster response. Been a lot of ideas thrown out and about. The Secretary of Homeland Security, Secretary Noem, created an advisory council to her to make recommendations on what should FEMA look like going forward, what should their responsibilities be, should they jettison some responsibilities. Been a lot of conversation about that. Some of these ideas have included creating a block, instead of providing funds to communities in response to a disaster, actually providing block grants to states and then having the states manage the funding. Some of the proposals were the turnover of the response and recovery efforts entirely to the state and in some case to local governments. All those things continue to be discussed. There are lots of conversation going on, but just last week, FEMA did put out an announcement that they're not going to make any changes during this calendar year because we're in the beginning of a hurricane season. They don't want to make any changes in the middle of that. They'll continue to discuss what their ideas are, but for the next 6.5 months, we're going to be operating a situation as usual. So we'll continue to monitor that for you and share information with Rosemarie and let you know what's happening there. But that is an important discussion, and it will obviously have an impact on you and your community and the county here. So in a related issue, we talked about good news on the budget front. President Trump actually included in his budget request a $4 billion increase in the annual allotment to the Federal Disaster Fund. As you know, Congress every year has to appropriate money into a fund, and then when disasters occur, those funds are made available to initially start the recovery efforts in your communities, and then secondarily to begin the response in your communities, and then secondarily to begin the recovery efforts in your state. So he recommended a 17% increase over last year's request. So he's trying to make sure that the funds are available for the states in case you need them for this year. So, Clerk, I hope I covered it in 5 minutes, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. I know there's a lot going on right now.
Any questions from Mr. Glenn?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to
for
be
a
with you
good
again.
report.
Thank you.
Good to see you,
Thank
Harry.
you.
Now we'll move to item 6 on the agenda, item 5.1, approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Now we'll move to the item 6, the consent agenda. Are there any items to be removed from the agenda? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Oh, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor of approving item 6.1 through
616.
616, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Unanimous. Move to item 7.1 on the agenda.
Amend the city's fiscal year 2024-25 operating and capital improvement budgets at mid-year and pass ordinances 9826-25 and 9827-25 on first reading.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is the mid-year budget review for the fiscal year 24-25 budget. I went over this with you on Monday. I'd be happy to answer any additional questions you have.
Does anyone here from this public desire to speak to agenda item 7.1? If there's none, is there any council discussion? If there's none, is being a reading.
Thank you, Mayor. We have ordinance number 9826-25, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the operating budget for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2025, to reflect increases and decreases in revenues and expenditures for the General Fund, Stormwater Fund, Solid Waste and Recycling Fund, Parking Fund, Garage Fund, Special Development Fund, and Special Program Fund as provided herein, providing an effective date. And we also have ordinance number 9827-25, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the capital improvement budget for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2025, to reflect a budget increase of $2,067,389, providing an effective date.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve agenda item 7.1.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Agenda item 7.2.
Approve to vacate the west 5-foot city utility easement by request of landowner Aaron Peterson located at 2074 Douglas Avenue, Clearwater, Florida, per Exhibits A and B, and further defined as the west 5 feet of Lot 5 and the west 5 feet of the south 20 feet of Lot 4, all in Block X of Bay Terrace and Bay Terrace Addition, according to the map of plat thereof, as recorded in Plat Book 13, page 22 of the Public Records of Pinellas County, and pass ordinance 9811-25 on first reading.
Does anyone here from the public desire to speak to agenda item 7.2? Having seen none,
Oh, we have one.
come forward. Yeah, you can come forward.
Thank you, Mayor and council members, for allowing me to speak here today. I would like to speak to the item 7.29811.
Could you state your name?
My name is Odella August. I'm a United States Army veteran and representative at Veterans Services Office at St. Petersburg College, and where I study public policy and administration. I'm also a vice president of ICMA, right? So I'm here today in supporting vacating the utility easement at 2074 Douglas Ave, Clearwater, Florida. This easement offers minimal benefits to the community public service while lowering property value. The loss of usable space restricts property equity and limit development and expansion opportunities that could impact property's risk during storms. Limiting this easement along with similar ones will benefit nearby properties and infrastructure. These processes are frequently lengthy and drawn out, limiting property owners' family time and hindering their preparation for annual hurricane season. For these reasons, I respectfully and urgently support passing ordinance 981125 on first reading. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else here from the public desire to be heard on this agenda?
Aaron Peterson, 2144 Cunningham Drive, Clearwater, Florida, 33763. Just introducing myself. I'm the property owner. Just saying hello. Thank you for your support. If you have any personal questions, I'm here to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone else desire to be heard on this agenda? Not, can we get a reading?
We have ordinance number 9811-25, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, vacating the west 5 foot of Lot 5 and the west 5 of the south 20 feet of Lot 4, all in Block X of Bay Terrace and Bay Terrace Addition, according to the map or plat thereof, as recorded in Plat Book 13, page 22, in the public records of Pinellas County, Florida, providing an effective date.
Is there any council discussion? If not, is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve agenda item 7.2.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Agenda item, thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item 8.1.
Point one is a second reading, so we have, first up is ordinance number 9822-25, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, annexing certain real property located on the south side of Laverne Street, approximately 175 feet west of Ridge Avenue, whose post office address is 1609 Laverne Street, Clearwater, Florida, 33755, into the corporate limits of the city, and redefining the boundary lines of the city to include said addition, providing an effective date.
Okay. Does anyone here from the public desire to be heard on agenda item 8.1? Hearing seeing none, is there any council discussion? Now, is there a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 8.1.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Agenda item 8.2.
8.2 is ordinance number 9823-25, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the future land use element of the comprehensive plan of the city to designate the land use for certain real property located on the south side of Laverne Street, approximately 175 feet west of Ridge Avenue, whose post office address is 1609 Laverne Street, Clearwater, Florida, 33755, upon annexation into the City of Clearwater as residential low RL, providing an effective date.
Does anyone here from the public desire to be heard on agenda item 8.2? Hearing seeing none, is there any council discussion? If none, is there a motion?
Move to approve agenda item 8.2.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Agenda item 8.3.
8.3 is ordinance number 9824-25, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the zoning atlas of the city by zoning certain real property located on the south side of Laverne Street, approximately 175 feet west of Ridge Avenue, whose post office address is 1609 Laverne Street, Clearwater, Florida, 33755, upon annexation into the City of Clearwater as low-medium density residential, LMDR, providing an effective date.
Does anyone here from the public desire to be heard on agenda item 8.3? Hearing seeing none, is there any council discussion? If there's none, is there a motion?
Move to approve agenda item 8.3.
Second?
Zoned out.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Move to agenda item 9, city manager reports.
Nothing, sir.
Agenda item 10, city attorney reports.
Nothing, sir.
Move to agenda item 11.1.
Yep, this is going to be my agenda. We spoke about it on Monday. Mr. Mayor, I hope you were able to see it, but if not, I'll just bring you up to speed on why I'm bringing up Duke Energy's Clean Energy Connection Program for our review. Bringing this up, as stated, it was recently brought up in the county, and the city started this to contribute into this program in August of 2022. When the program was pitched in August of 2020, we were supposed to get a break-even point within 5 years, which would have been in year 2027, followed by full payback in year 2029, which would be 7 years. Those goalposts have been changed, and the break-even point is now year 15, or 2037, and full payback in 27 years, or by 2049. To date, taxpayers are in the negative at $383,401.07. And for the above-mentioned reasons, I propose that we withdraw from the program at a staff-recommended date. So we did have a good discussion about it. I'm sure that you were able to follow up on those, but I don't know if you have any input or want to discuss it further.
No, I agree with the concern, and the county's concern was that it wasn't a fair return for the taxpayers, and so I support it.
Very good. If you don't mind, then do you all have a proposed date? Would it be your staff?
Yeah, we would recommend that no later than September, the end of September.
End of September? Okay, well then with that, I'll make a motion to withdraw from the Duke Energy Clean Energy Connection Program by the end of September.
Second?
Okay. Is there anyone here from the public that desires to speak to agenda item 11.1?
Hello, Brian Beckman. I live in Clearwater. I sent you an email on this today. I don't know if you got a chance to look at it, but I was hoping that in between Monday's meeting and today, you'd have information that you'd be sharing with the public. I know you talked about some information that city staff apparently collected. Apparently, there was also some other information that some staff members brought forward on renewable energy credits. I don't know how much of that, or in a follow-up conversation you had, of how that factors into dollar amounts. I know some of the other cities that are enrolled are considering those renewable energy credits as value. So I was hoping that that information you make available to the public, the analysis that was done, especially before taking a vote, and it sounds like it's not urgent that it has to be taken today if you're going to be making a decision to unenroll from the program later this summer or early fall. And so I was hoping you could discuss more of that information. I don't know if, Mayor, if you got a chance to hear that part of the conversation around renewable energy credits and how that fits into the city's sustainability plans. But especially if you could share that information with the public. So I know that the plan or the program has changed significantly, and that is not a positive situation from a money standpoint. So I certainly appreciate that. And I appreciate all of the great work that the city, yourselves as a council, have done to save the city money, save the residents money as it relates to energy with the energy program with Synergistics. I should be, approaching $3 million in savings, and with the city solar, that's in progress, a lot of money saved there. And so if you do decide to unenroll from the program, that hopefully you'll be able to take any of those savings and apply that further to save money directly rather than depending upon Duke in this case. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public desire to speak to agenda item 11.1? If not, is there council discussion? Councilmember Menino?
Go ahead, Dave.
No, I thought we did discuss those credits, and although they're not like money, they can be used. But, you know, I think there's other ways that we could save. Doing renewable energy directly instead of going through this program, because, you know, when we voted for this before, it was like, well, the ROI seemed to be pretty good. Now it's not so good. And, you know, I'm reading a lot about these solar farms are really not really good for the environment anyway. So I think if we don't want to take away from our goal of renewable energy and saving energy, but we can do that directly with the money that we're saving on this, as putting solar panels on City Hall or things like that.
Councilmember Menino?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I did as well want to dive in a little deeper on the renewable energy credits. I had questions about those after the work session, and made a handful of phone calls to other electeds and local municipalities, and did find out that, you know, why they are very valuable and important in the program. Some of the challenges associated with them, it doesn't account for some important things like the time value of money, inflation, and the rising energy costs that we keep seeing. And with the program so heavily backloaded with those, a dollar in savings today is not used the same as in this case, you know, more than 2 decades in the future. And unfortunately, the program doesn't account for that. Again, I think it's important for us as a body to identify, although we're saying it's in the best interest of the taxpayers of the city of Clearwater to pull out of this program, our importance and recognition of the importance of our clean energy goals associated in Greenprint 2.0 isn't necessarily changing. And it is an opportunity for us as a team
and a body to realign those goals and to re-strategize and find other ways that we can continue to be good environmental stewards. I think some things that we might want to open up the conversation, if we're saving money on this strategy and pulling out, maybe we look into solar rebate programs like some of our neighboring cities do. I know Dunedin does a very effective one. Boynton Beach does a very effective one, and maybe we could have some conversations about that will help us continue to move forward in some of those goals. But I as well did have a lot of questions about the effectiveness of the program for a handful of reasons, not just the return on investment that we talked at length about, but it is important for us to continue moving forward, being good stewards of our environment.
Well, yes, you kind of beat me to it by putting it on this agenda because it's something I had noticed too, the county's moved away from it. And, you know, this doesn't mean anything about our commitment to solar and being sustainable and using renewable energy. In fact, next week, I think we're celebrating solar installations out at Morningside, and we are committed to doing that all across the city. And it's just about this program for us. And the program just doesn't seem to be working out fairly for the taxpayers. But it's not about our commitment to green energy, to solar energy, and to making our city more sustainable. We certainly want to continue to do that. We just want to do it in a cost-effective way for our citizens. So thank you for putting this on the agenda. Any further discussion? If not, then we'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. That we'll move to item 12, closing comments by council members. Councilmember Cotton?
I don't have anything at this time. Thank you.
Councilmember Menino?
I do not, Mayor. I just wanted to say, I think we all left without saying it on Monday, but the Vice Mayor did a great job. She looks a little different than you, but and she beats the gavel a little different, but she did do a great job, so we welcome you back, and you did a wonderful job, Vice Mayor.
Councilmember Albritton?
Yes, I wanted to tell everybody that the Suncoast Transit, the Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority, which is PSTA, is set to revitalize ferry service between St. Petersburg and Tampa, thanks to a $4.86 million federal grant transferred from the Hillsborough Area Regional Transit Authority, which is HART. Originally awarded to HART in 2021 for a now-canceled ferry project to MacDill Air Force Base. The grant was nearing expiration, so to retain the funds within the Tampa Bay area, HART approved by a vote last week to transfer to PSTA. The pending final approval is from the FTA, the Federal Transit Administration, and we've been talking to them, and it looks like it's going to be just a few weeks, and we'll hear something back positive about that. PSTA plans to use the grant to purchase 1 or 2 high-speed ferry vessels aiming to establish a more reliable and permanent cross-bay ferry service. Unlike previous models that teased boats, PSTA intends to own its own vessels, which is expected to reduce the long-term operating costs and enhance service flexibility. The agency will contract with an experienced third-party operator with request for proposal anticipated this summer. So, you know, I'm on the also the ferry board, which has been meeting off and on for past 3 or 4 years. This is actually the bookend from what we started in Clearwater with the Clearwater ferry service, and I'm glad we're picking this up in St. Pete, because eventually the whole idea is to have ferry service from Clearwater all the way down the chain of out islands and then to the city of St. Petersburg. So this gives us the final link in the chain to go from St. Pete to Tampa, and you know, owning our own boats, and it will really reduce the cost a lot, where it's affordable for people to move from St. Pete to Tampa. So we're excited about that. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
I have none. Thank you.
We'll move then to closing comments by Mayor. I just have one thing to share. I just got back today, actually. This morning I was in London and in Germany and made it back for this council meeting tonight, but appreciate the Vice Mayor chairing the work session on Monday. But I was attending a global Tampa Bay mission, economic development mission to London. And Mayor Castor, Mayor Welch was there. Our three county commission chairs were there. Commissioner Scott from Pinellas, Commissioner Starkey from Pasco, and Commissioner Ken Hagan from Hillsborough. And we did talk with British businesses about relocating over here and doing some activities here in the United States, but we also talked about all kinds of other things. And I can't tell you just how important it was for Clearwater to participate in that regional conversation. Your work, you're talking about the work across the bay with Hart, and you're on committees too, and all of us are on committees. But for Clearwater, it's just really important for me to see that regional cooperation, because as I shared with a group in one of our meetings, so much of our workforce here in Clearwater comes from outside, not just Clearwater, but outside Pinellas County. I think maybe out of our hospitality workers on Clearwater Beach, over half of those come in from Hillsborough, Pasco County. So all those issues and their quality of life, transportation in our region are important to Clearwater, because we've got to get people to work and serve at these businesses here. So, and I did that, you know, we joke from time to time that we're competitive in some ways, but we're not when it comes to doing what's best for everyone in the Tampa Bay region. And I just wanted to share with you all and the citizens that I couldn't be happier with the way other municipalities, other counties in our region are working together, and seeing Clearwater as being a jewel of the Tampa Bay region and an asset for all of the region to enjoy. And the future is bright, just not for Clearwater, but for all of Tampa Bay, when we're all working together on issues like you described, Councilmember Albritton, and other issues that we're involved in. The involvement we have regionally is really important to the future of Clearwater and our citizens of Clearwater. So I couldn't have been happier with the results I had on my trip, and thank you, other council members, what you do to be involved in these regional boards and to make Clearwater an important part of the Tampa Bay region. So with that, if there's nothing else to come before the City Council, we will adjourn the meeting of June 5, 2025.